In the middle of a tense meeting, I happened to glance at my boss's phone screen and nearly dropped my cup of coffee. A couple was making out passionately right there on the screen. I was about to remind him that this wasn't the time for that kind of thing, but then he said just one sentence, and I froze. When I looked more closely, the man in that video was my fiancé. What would you do if you found out your soon-to-be husband was cheating? Through your boss's home security camera? Leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next stories. I'm Emma. The sound of keyboard clicks and the steady voice of the HR manager echoed through the meeting room, but all I could feel was a suffocating heaviness wrapping around me. This morning's meeting dragged on endlessly, and I began to lose focus, my eyes unintentionally glancing over at James, my boss, sitting right next to me. He was hunched over his phone, brows furrowed like he was dealing with some major crisis. I was about to tease him for sneaking a look at something mid-meeting when the screen lit up under his fingers, and my heart skipped a beat. A man and a woman were tangled up on a couch, kissing so passionately it felt like they were devouring the air around them. His hand was deep under her shirt, and she clutched his shoulders tightly, their bodies pressed together like they couldn't stand being apart. The image was so vivid, so intimate, it made my breath catch in my throat. I leaned down, lowered my voice in disbelief, trying to keep my cool in front of everyone. "Boss! Are you really watching that in the middle of a meeting?" James jerked his head up, the usual calm on his face now drained, his brown eyes glassy, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He took a deep breath, his voice dropping, trembling like he was trying to hold back a storm inside. "This is my home security camera." His words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Security camera?" I blinked, trying to process it, then looked back at the screen. The angle was familiar. James's living room, the gray leather sofa, the painting on the wall. But it wasn't the details that made my blood run cold. It was the face of the man holding that woman, the one I knew too well. I screamed before I could think, my voice cracking and bouncing off the meeting room walls. "That's my fiancé, Ryan." The whole room fell silent, heads whipping around toward us, but I didn't care. James fumbled to lock his phone screen, his hand shaking so badly the phone nearly slipped. He'd only opened the camera to check if his cat had eaten on time. A tiny habit during a busy day? Who would have thought it'd turn into live footage of betrayal, slicing straight into both our hearts? I collapsed into my chair, head spinning. Ryan Parker, my soon-to-be husband, the man I'd trusted for years, was now wrapped around another woman. In my boss's home, no less. And worse, at the same time, in the same place, they had stabbed both of us in the back. My throat tightened. Memories of that morning when he kissed me goodbye flooding in. The meeting ended in silence, everyone slipping out without a word, leaving me and James slumped in our seats, too stunned to move. The air felt like lead, and the soft hum of the AC was the only thing breaking the dead silence. God, what kind of cursed day is this? You go to work, and you still get betrayed. James and I, both cheated on by the people we loved, on the exact same day. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. James Nolan, my boss, wasn't like those cold-hearted CEOs you see in the movies. He wasn't the kind of guy who'd storm into a bar, order a few whiskeys, and try to drink the pain away. No, James was nothing like that. Even though his heart had just been ripped apart, he sat upright in his office, eyes fixed on his laptop screen, preparing for a major partner meeting next week. I looked at him, surprised, even a little jealous of the way he turned pain into sharp focus. What do you call it? That's professionalism, the kind that makes you grit your teeth, swallow your tears, and get the job done while your world is falling apart. As his personal assistant, I got pulled into that whirlwind. James pushed me into a storm of tasks, drafting contracts, planning projects, filling up the calendar with back-to-back meetings. I buried myself in writing reports, sending emails, checking numbers, to the point where I didn't even have time to think about Ryan, the lousy fiancé who turned my first love into a cruel joke. My heart burned with resentment, wanting to storm over to Ryan's house, pound on the door, and scream in his face, demanding how he could betray me so easily. But then I'd glance at the thick project binder on my desk, think about how James still calmly joined every meeting despite his shattered heart, and I'd tell myself, I can do this too. And honestly, James paid too damn well. That six-figure monthly salary twinkling in my account felt like a sweet kind of comfort. So what if I couldn't go punch that jerk in the face? It's fine. That money was enough to soothe my fury, at least for now. Every time I wanted to hurl my phone at the wall after stumbling across an old message from Ryan, I'd think about that number in my bank account, grit my teeth, and type out yet another email. James and I, two people betrayed by love, had become tireless work machines, turning heartbreak into words, numbers, and flawless contracts. 3 days later, when the final project was completed, James finally stopped. He, the man who once turned pain into steel-like drive, now sat in his office with his shoulders slightly slumped, eyes gazing out the window, where sunlight filtered through the oak leaves. "Emma," he said, his voice hoarse, for the first time tinged with exhaustion. "Let's go eat today." "I need a little time to breathe." I nodded, asking no further questions. As his secretary, I was used to following him everywhere, but this time, the invitation carried a heavy weight we both could feel. We went to a bar downtown, and I ordered an old-fashioned, sweet bourbon with a hint of bitter, hoping it would calm the chaos in my head. He started with small sips, but after just 2 glasses of Manhattan, rich, sweet liquor, with cherry soaked in the flavor of dark fruit, his face turned red, eyes glistening under the candlelight. Suddenly, he reached out and hugged me tight, his shoulders trembling. Hot tears soaked through my blouse, and in the background of soft jazz music, he poured his heart out like a dam breaking, about romantic trips, promises under the Texas stars, all now shattered like broken glass. I lazily glanced at him, took another sip of bourbon that burned down my throat, making me a little dizzy. I didn't push him away, just sat there, letting him sob, my hand gently rubbing his back like comforting a child. The image of Ryan's betrayal still haunted me, leaving me with no strength for deeper empathy. We were served a few more rounds. He ordered a dry martini, I followed with a bitter Negroni, and the alcohol blurred all lines. I don't remember exactly how, just that his arm was around my shoulder, and we were laughing and leaning into each other in the taxi ride to a nearby hotel, our laughter echoing into the night. Then, like a storm, we fell into bed, clothes scattered on the floor, breath tangled in the darkness. The next morning, in the hotel room, with the curtains slightly open, letting sunlight in, the air was thick with embarrassment. The bed sheets were wrinkled, the smell of liquor and perfume mixed together, and I lay there, head spinning with regret. What's done is done, no use regretting now. I hurriedly got dressed, my wrinkled black dress torn at one corner, high heels a mess, then tried to sneak out, clutching the room key, heart pounding like a thief. Behind me came a low, hoarse voice, still heavy with leftover alcohol. "Not planning to take responsibility?" James sat up in bed, hair disheveled, eyes sharp with a cold smile, the blanket slipping off his shoulder, revealing a small tattoo on his chest I'd never seen before. Didn't expect Secretary Emma to be the type who takes advantage and walks away. I turned around, stunned, mouth agape. What? Did I hear him right? My boss, James Nolan, the charismatic CEO in Armani suits, the billionaire admired from afar by every woman in the office, was now sitting there demanding I take responsibility? His eyes glared at me with resentment, as if I was the kind of woman who seduced, used, and ran. Eyes narrowing, lips pressed tight, hands gripping the sheets until his knuckles turned pale. He went on coldly, voice sharp as a blade. "You think I'll let you use me without consequences? I could sue you for damaging the reputation of a gentleman." His words echoed in the silent room, leaving me frozen, feet nailed to the floor. James, the man who always had control, had flipped the script and made me the villain. I lit a cigarette, took a long drag, smoke lazily drifting in the heavy air, then sighed. "Fine. Tell me what kind of responsibility I need to take." My voice was tired, the taste of nicotine bitter on my tongue, but I didn't expect those 3 words to lead to such a crazy morning. Within hours, after James drove me to the civil family courthouse on Guadalupe Street, where the county clerk looked at us with a familiar glance meant for impulsive couples, I had signed a marriage certificate. Maybe it was thanks to his connections with the local judge, but everything happened at lightning speed. Filling out forms, taking oaths in front of a witness, and boom, a diamond ring sparkling on my finger, although slightly loose. I, Emma Watson, because of one drunken night after a few cocktails, ended up with James stuck to me, and just like that, became a married woman. Lying on the expensive mattress in James's mansion, I was still dazed, my head spinning like I hadn't sobered up from the night before. Just a few glasses of alcohol, and somehow I'd become James Nolan's wife, moved into this massive house with glass walls looking out over endless fields of grass. The soft mattress cradled my body, the silk sheets cool against my skin. So comfortable, I almost forgot the madness of the past few days. The faint scent of candles on the table, moonlight slipping through white silk curtains, made the room feel like a luxurious painting I never thought I belonged in. The sound of water running from the bathroom echoed steadily, like background music. I turned my head, eyes drifting toward the frosted glass, where James's tall silhouette stood, his strong lines blurred by steam. His figure, I had to admit, wasn't bad at all. Broad shoulders, straight back, like a living sculpture under the dim light. I frowned, asking myself what I was doing here, in this house, on this bed, with the man who used to be my boss. The water stopped suddenly, slicing off my train of thought. James stepped out, a crisp white towel wrapped around his waist, droplets rolling from his damp, curly hair down his honey-toned skin, slowly tracing the lines of his firm muscles, glistening. Each drop seemed to flaunt itself, sliding over his chest, across his stomach, disappearing beneath the edge of the towel. Deadly attractive, I couldn't deny it. My face burned hot, like I'd just been caught peeking. Was this guy showing off on purpose? I turned away, pretending to fix my pillow, but James had already caught my stare. He smirked, a half-smile that was both dangerous and provocative, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Wanna try?" His voice was low, like an invitation laced with teasing, still holding onto the towel, standing there like he owned the whole damn world. I snapped my head up, stiff neck, chin raised high, refusing to back down. In my mind, a voice screamed, "Don't let him pull you into his game!" But another part of me, the part already shaken by his stupidly handsome face, whispered, "Well, we are legally married. So why not?" I took a deep breath, lips curling into a defiant smile, locking eyes with him without a trace of fear. "All right then," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Like I was tossing a glove into a match I wasn't sure I could win. That night, I was woken up by the sound of a phone ringing. James, lying beside me, sleepily reached over to grab it, thinking it was his. "Emma, why aren't you home yet?" Ryan, my fiancé, or no, my ex-fiancé now. My heart skipped a beat, like someone had squeezed it tight. I snapped fully awake, realizing I hadn't had a chance to break up with Ryan yet. He probably still thought I was clueless about the betrayal, which is why he was calling at this hour. I opened my mouth to speak, but James was faster. His hand covered my lips, and a suggestive noise echoed through the room. He stayed quiet for 2 seconds, just long enough for Ryan on the other end to start sounding confused, then spoke in a lazy drawl, every word dripping with sarcasm. "Calling my wife this late. Don't you think that's a bit rude?" Silence on the other end, like Ryan had just been splashed with cold water. Then he burst out yelling, voice cracking with rage and panic. "Who the hell are you? Why are you answering Emma's phone? She's my girlfriend." James sat up, back against the headboard, the phone screen casting a cold glow on his face, highlighting that smug, icy smile. He enunciated every word clearly, his voice low and razor sharp. "Today, Emma Watson signed a marriage certificate with me. Our relationship is legally protected. If you harass my wife again, my lawyer will be in touch." He hit the word wife hard, like a hammer straight to Ryan's chest, and I could almost hear the choke on the other end. Before Ryan could say another word, James hung up. I heard Ryan's scream of despair echoing just before the call ended, like a trapped animal. James tossed the phone onto the bed, ran a hand through his hair, then shot me a cutting glance. I blinked, feeling awkward, like I'd just been caught cheating. "Been swamped with the project lately. I haven't had time to break up," I muttered. "Impressive," he said, voice laced with sarcasm. I mumbled something under my breath, pulling the blanket over half my face like I could hide from his stare. James didn't say anything else. He just scrolled through his phone, blocking every possible contact from Ryan with one swift motion. When done, he gave me a quick look, voice cold like a warning. "Emma, don't forget. We're legally married now." I opened my mouth to protest, to say that the courthouse paper was a moment of impulse, that I wasn't ready for this whole wife title. But then I remembered that morning, my messy signature on the certificate, and James' happy smile. I stayed quiet, lips pressed into a line, watching him deliver those textbook, romantic CEO lines I used to swoon over in dramas. Inside, a little voice whispered, "Sometimes it really feels like I'm living in a rom-com, with all the drama and ridiculous twists. Maybe I watched too many of those shows in a past life, and now I've landed right in the middle of one. I, a girl who used to binge absurdly dramatic Chinese short series, never imagined I'd end up the lead in a script even crazier than fiction. Growing up in a poor neighborhood in Austin, where dusty streets and sagging homes were my whole world, I was used to scraping by. Everything changed when I passed the interview to become James Nolan's secretary, stepping into a world of glass offices and million-dollar contracts. James, if seen through the lens of a drama, was the classic second lead, the man who'd do anything for the woman he loves. He used to spoil his fiancée, buy lavish gifts, plan perfect starlit evenings, like he'd stepped straight out of a romance novel. As his secretary, I was always meticulous, working like a machine, terrified the company might collapse one day and take me down with it. I kept a few job applications in my drawer, afraid James might go bankrupt and drag me back to the dusty roads I came from. But before I could see him go broke, I somehow became the wife of a billionaire. A twist so wild, not even the shows I loved dared to write it. Ever since that night, he overheard Ryan's phone call. James turned into a different person. He started pushing me to work like crazy, dumping dozens of new tasks on me every single day. From drafting financial reports to reviewing land contracts, with a reason so absurd I could barely stop myself from rolling my eyes into next week. "I don't want you to have free time to go on dates with someone else." Every time I opened my mouth to yell at him for that ridiculous excuse, he'd shut me up with just one line, "Bonus increase." And just like that, I'd flip the switch, plaster on a fake smile, and say sweetly, "James, I absolutely love my job. Contributing to the company is the greatest honor of my life." The words came out smooth as butter, but inside, another voice in me was laughing. "At this rate, just keep paying me like this, and I'll dedicate my whole damn life." I knew this marriage with James was nothing but a reckless impulse, a whirlwind of emotions spun out of drunken nights and the sting of betrayal. Sooner or later, he'd regret it, when another girl shows up, one who really makes his heart skip a beat. And when that happens, This marriage certificate will be nothing more than scrap paper, and this whole thing will come to an end. But I'm not naive. When that day comes, my only comfort will be the number in my bank account. So right now, I'm milking every minute, every second to make money. The more assets James has, the bigger the chunk I'll get in a divorce. Work isn't just about money anymore. It's an investment in my future, a way to secure the second half of my life. Every email I send, every contract I finalize, is a brick in the financial wall I'm building for the day I walk out of this mansion. Lately, I've been buried in a major deal involving the acquisition of land on the east side of the city. A deal so massive just thinking about it makes my head spin. I've been working like a nonstop machine. How tired am I exactly? Let's just say, there was a time when, in the middle of a steamy moment with James, my lips had just touched his, our breaths tangled, the soft light from the bedside lamp casting a warm glow over us. I fell asleep. My head dropped onto his shoulder, breathing soft and steady, and a tiny snore escaped before I even realized. James lost it. He sat up in the middle of the night, glaring at me like I'd committed a felony, grumbling, "Emma, you're showing signs of getting bored with me. I need to take you to the hospital right now." He jumped up, yanked the car keys from the drawer, face red under the light, like he was ready to drive us straight to a marriage counselor at 2 a.m. I rubbed my eyes, trying to stay awake, but I couldn't help laughing at how ridiculous he sounded. "James, have you ever considered looking at yourself for once?" I shot back, my voice sleepy but still sharp, propping myself up on the mattress, hair a tangled mess covering half my face. "You're so scared I'm gonna run off with some other guy that you've been overloading me with work every day. If I weren't this exhausted, how the hell would I even manage to fall asleep mid-kiss?" He froze, a flicker of awkwardness flashing in his eyes, but he quickly regained the confident composure of a CEO. I sighed and rolled out of bed, knowing I'd just lost another round in this strange game. But this time, I wasn't letting it slide. In the middle of the night, as moonlight slipped through the curtains and cast a silver haze across the room, I sat up, pointed straight at James, and said, frustration heavy in my voice, "You dump all this work on me. I let it slide, thinking maybe you're emotionally damaged after being betrayed by your ex. But now you're piling all the responsibility on me? Isn't that just a little unfair?" My voice echoed through the bedroom, each word like a pebble thrown at James. He sat there on the expensive silk sheets, his posture slightly hunched, his usually handsome face now wilted like a flower left out in the sun. His brown eyes, normally sharp and self-assured, were downcast, glimmering with a rare trace of hurt. For a split second, I almost felt guilty. Almost, because in that moment, he actually looked pitiful. But then, in the awkward silence, James suddenly mumbled under his breath, his voice barely louder than the wind. "Can't you just call me honey once?" I froze, unsure if I'd heard right. James looked up. "We've been married this long, and you haven't called me darling even once," he said, sulking, voice tinged with childlike resentment, like the world had done him dirty. I blinked, my mind spinning, scrambling for an excuse to get out of this weird situation. "You haven't called me anything sweet either," I replied, my voice slightly shaky, one hand unconsciously pulling the blanket up over my chest like a shield. But James, as if waiting for that exact moment, immediately sat up straighter, eyes lighting up like stars in the night. He leaned in toward me, voice suddenly soft, shy, but full of sincerity. "Sweetheart." My ears burned, a jolt of electricity running down my spine. Inside my chest, it felt like a tiny kitten was brushing its tail lightly against my heart, ticklish but warm. James looked at me, his eyes glinting like moonlight outside the window, waiting, holding his breath, just hoping I'd whisper, "Darling," back. But my throat locked up, my tongue went stiff, and for the life of me, I couldn't get a single syllable out. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. James waved a hand, the smile on his lips both mocking and resigned. One darling. 200 grand, he said coolly, like he was tossing a few coins to buy candy. I froze, eyes wide, my brain whirling like a computer stuck on a giant calculation. $200,000? Just to say, darling? My throat instantly cleared, as if by magic. I shot out of bed like a gust of wind, climbed onto James, arms wrapped tightly around his neck. My face so close, I could see every strand of his eyebrow. Darling, I called, voice sweet like honey, dragging out the last syllable like I was singing a love song. James burst into laughter, his laugh echoing through the room. Just seconds later, my phone chimed with a familiar ding, a bank notification. $200,000 had just been transferred into my account. I sat there, still wrapped around his neck, lips curled into a victorious smile. At this rate, I might not even need to wait until the divorce to build my own financial empire. My life, with James and all this endless drama, really was a movie. The only difference now was, I was the main character, exhausted, pragmatic, and secretly loving this bizarre little game. Since that night I yelled at him, James seemed to have a conscience awakening. My workload dropped significantly. No more midnight emails or draining meetings that lasted until exhaustion. I sighed in relief, finally having a bit of time to breathe. One afternoon, I was leisurely sitting at the cafe downstairs from our office, holding a steaming latte in my hands, the foamed milk melting gently on my tongue, the scent of coffee blending with the light aroma of pastries in the warm air of the shop. Soft jazz music played in the background, and I slowly sipped my latte, feeling like the whole world had slowed down. Just my luck. Trying to escape work for a moment, I ran into my ex. Ryan, uninvited, plopped down right across from me, his face dark like a storm cloud. He stared straight into my face, eyes gloomy like he was trying to dissect every inch of me, lips pressed so tight they turned pale. Emma Watson, I never thought you'd be this kind of person, dating me and then running off to marry someone else. I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eyes and took another slow sip of coffee. I let out each word clearly, my voice calm but sharp like a blade. When you slept with Ashley Brooks, did you remember you had a girlfriend? Ryan's face changed instantly, his skin visibly paling, his expression tangled in guilt, like he'd been caught red-handed, eyes blinking rapidly, hands clutching the table edge. His sluggish reaction was almost laughable. Did he really think blaming me would make him look like the good guy? My tone was extra gentle, laced with a mocking smile, like I was teasing a child. Why aren't you answering? Ryan forced a smile, lips pulling into a fake curve, and the moment he opened his mouth, out came the same old trash line. It was just a mistake, but you shouldn't have. I cut him off cold, voice innocent but biting. I'm not here to talk about your mistakes or your betrayal, okay? My words rang out in the quiet cafe, turning a few heads, but I didn't care. I kept my eyes fixed on Ryan's increasingly pale face. Just as I was about to get up, a deep male voice interrupted, like a command that brought everything to a halt. Sweetheart? James slowly walked over, his steps steady, his eyes locked on me, his face unreadable, but the darkness in his gaze was enough to make my heart skip. He stood by the table, his tall frame blocking part of the light from the window, his voice low and cold. I believe I warned you, didn't I? Ryan looked like he'd never seen anything like this. You. He pointed at James, but couldn't even form a full sentence. I gave him a cold side-eye, my voice steady and firm. I'm married now. Don't come looking for me again. Then I gave him a sharp glance, like shooing away a stray dog, and Ryan bolted, stumbling out of the cafe like a defeated man. As soon as I turned away, James narrowed his eyes at me, his voice full of mock jealousy. Wife, were you planning to leave me for him? I panicked, afraid he'd throw more work my way, so I quickly reassured him. I swear I'll never leave you. As long as you don't file for divorce, I'll never go. Quietly, I added to myself. At least not until you fall in love with someone else. Then I'll cash in the maximum settlement. That night, we had to attend a charity gala. A small gathering, but packed with power players. I'd gone with James a few times before, so I knew this was the place where businessmen traded intel and sealed deals between glasses of wine. We arrived a little late. The banquet hall was already packed, the crystal chandeliers casting shimmering light over glossy tuxedos and extravagant gowns. The moment we stepped in, my eyes were drawn to the man seated at the head table, Daniel Reed, exuding a sharp, commanding presence, like a finely honed blade. He sat tall at the center, eyelids half lowered, his entire aura icy and intimidating, fingers twisting a silver ring on his finger, eyes sweeping across the room as if sizing up prey. Beside him was his stunning companion, Olivia Harper, elegant and poised. She sat upright in a vibrant red dress that hugged her figure, her hair pinned up to reveal her graceful neck, though her eyes seemed distant. The event went on for a while, moving into private toasts and quiet chats, the clinking of glasses echoing softly. I couldn't take my eyes off Daniel and Olivia, and neither, it seemed, could James, who sat beside me with his gaze locked in their direction. Several businessmen took turns trying to toast Olivia, their voices half flirty, holding out glasses to her. She kept declining, her head shaking gently, a strained smile on her lips. Daniel, silent until now, suddenly slammed the lighter he'd been fiddling with onto the table, the sharp click cutting through the air. He narrowed his eyes, smirking coldly, voice dripping with venom. "Olivia, why the attitude?" His tone was loaded with mockery. "I spent all that money to invite you here, just so you could pull a face at me?" The air turned tense. The other men froze, wine glasses halfway up, faces flushing red, terrified of irritating Daniel. Olivia's doe eyes glossed over, tears welling up, her lips tight as she fought to hold it in, her hand gripping the napkin until her knuckles turned white. I nudged James, who was watching the scene with a disturbingly thoughtful expression, trying to give him a chance to be a hero, and whispered, "Aren't you going to help her?" James didn't even lift an eyelid, his voice flat. "I'm a married man now. I have to keep my image." My lips twitched. "Sure, James. Image indeed." Olivia refused to drink, and Daniel suddenly let out a quiet laugh before deliberately spilling his cocktail onto her dress. The deep red liquid spread like blood, the soft clink of glass breaking the silence. His voice was hoarse, mixed with a cruel chuckle. "This is what happens when you don't obey." The scene made my chest tighten, my breath catch. Even James, glued to his phone, looked up, his eyes turning several shades colder. Was he finally going to stand up and protect her? But all he said was, "That cocktail cost $500 a glass." What a waste, seriously. Now he feels bad about the cocktail? This was the moment to feel bad for the beautiful woman. If he keeps acting like this, he'll never land another girl in his life. Daniel's deep, unreadable eyes flicked toward me, filled with something calculating, like a wolf assessing its prey. I held my gaze steady, not flinching, meeting his stare head-on. Suddenly, James grabbed my hand, his fingers tightening, his voice low but unmistakably threatening. "Don't look at other men." Ever since I saw the way James glanced at Olivia at the charity gala, I started taking work more seriously, my mind spinning up a dramatic script full of tension. In my imagination, James was obsessed with Olivia and would end up in a messy love triangle with Daniel Reed, that sharp and powerful man. In the end, Daniel would play dirty, drive James into bankruptcy, the company would collapse, and I, the reluctant wife/secretary, would lose my job, my quality of life crashing straight into rock bottom, back to the days of scraping by in a poor neighborhood. I could already picture myself sitting in a tiny apartment, counting coins, while James drowned in debt because of a woman. But real life isn't a movie. What happened next was the exact opposite of my imaginary script. Olivia, despite being beautiful and alluring, didn't seem to affect James at all. He still showed up to work on time, left on schedule, his black suit perfectly pressed, hair neatly styled, eyes as sharp as ever. Occasionally, he'd even blurt out cheesy romantic one-liners that made me want to bury myself alive. Emma, do you know your eyes shine like the streetlights in Austin? Classic example. Enough to make me laugh and cringe at the same time. Then one day, James insisted on coming with me to a college friends reunion. I immediately said no, but he put on a pitiful face and whined, "You've never introduced me to your friends. Are you planning to divorce me and marry someone else?" He turned away, shoulders trembling like I just stabbed him in the heart. I was stunned. Watching him put on that performance, I couldn't help but laugh inside. God, I just discovered my boss has a natural-born talent for acting. James, you should quit being a CEO and go be a Hollywood star. You'd outshine Brad Pitt. With no other choice, I sighed and agreed. Fine, let's go. The venue was a popular bar downtown, the same place we used to hang out in college. I walked in wearing a fitted black dress, and James beside me in a perfectly tailored gray suit, silver watch glinting under the lights. The moment he appeared, he sucked all the attention in the room. Tall nose bridge, sharp facial features, calm yet piercing gaze. He looked like a movie star who accidentally wandered into a casual bar. I overheard gasps from the next table, and one of my old girlfriends whispered, "Emma, who is that?" Everyone asked me to introduce him, their voices a mix of curiosity and surprise. I smiled, gestured toward James, and calmly said, "This is my husband, James Nolan." As soon as the words left my mouth, the whole table exploded in mock outrage. "Why didn't you invite us to the wedding? Emma, you kept this too well hidden." Laughter and chatter filled the room, but I just shrugged and sipped my cocktail, while James sat there with a smug little smile, eyes glinting with quiet triumph. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed with a work call. I excused myself, stepped into the hallway, finished the call, and was about to head back when I heard two of my classmates whispering in the hallway corner, voices low but sharp like blades. "Emma's husband's decked out in designer stuff. That watch alone is 6 figures. Didn't she say her boyfriend was just some regular guy? Probably used her looks to snag a rich one. No wedding announcement, no ring on her finger, maybe just a mistress." Each sentence hit harder than the last, like needles in my ears. I stood there, gripping my phone tightly, debating whether to walk away and avoid the unnecessary drama. But the moment I turned, I ran right into James's chest. He was standing behind me, tall, blocking the light, his handsome face now shadowed with worry, his brown eyes staring at me intently. Clearly, he'd heard everything, but his worry was unnecessary. Words like that couldn't touch me. I grew up in a poor neighborhood, used to all kinds of gossip, from poor little girl to ambitious girl climbing ladders. I shrugged and said calmly, "Back in school, I was too busy working part-time to survive. Never got close to anyone." "I've heard worse." James said nothing, just looked at me, eyes softening, as if he wanted to say something but held it back. We walked back to the private room, where the party was still buzzing with laughter and clinking glasses. Suddenly, the bar manager brought over a tray of premium drinks, bottles we hadn't ordered. The friend hosting the party widened his eyes, surprised. "Who ordered these?" James stood up, composed and confident, voice steady with authority. "This round's on me. Thanks everyone for taking care of my wife. Cheers." The whole table went quiet. People glanced at each other. The two girls who were gossiping earlier dropped their heads, faces flushed red, too embarrassed to speak. The sound of glasses clinking followed, red wine swirling. After dinner, I followed James to the counter to pay. Everyone was starting to leave, voices saying goodbye here and there. James pulled out his wallet, smiling as he handed over the card with flair, fingers gliding across the credit card like he was performing. Then he turned to me, his voice lazy but cocky, with a bit of a rogue charm. "You know what my love for you is like?" I frowned, suspicious. "What now?" He lowered his lashes, smirked, eyes darkening, voice dropping to a playful whisper. "Like my credit card, never runs out." And there it was. Yet another painfully cringy line from the CEO of some cheesy romance movie. I wanted to sink into the floor out of secondhand embarrassment, my face burning, one hand covering my mouth to keep from bursting into laughter. I shook my head, grabbed his hand, and hurried us to the car, thinking to myself, if this man weren't rich, nobody would survive his pickup lines. A month passed, and life with James went on. Tonight, we were attending yet another lavish cocktail party. The event was halfway through, soft jazz playing in the background, the air thick with expensive perfume and red wine. At some point, I realized James had disappeared from our table. Seizing the rare chance, I decided to sneak away from the dull small talk and socializing. I grabbed a glass of champagne and stepped out onto the balcony, hoping for a bit of peace. The balcony was filled with fresh flowers, clusters of roses and hydrangeas swaying gently in the night breeze, their sweet, cool fragrance creating a little haven apart from the overwhelming luxury inside. It was already dark. I leaned on the railing, tilted my head back to admire the moon, took a sip of champagne. The fine wine slid down like silk, cool on the tongue, spreading a pleasant warmth. I sighed, unable to count how many events like this I'd followed James to each year. This was the CEO world, an endless carousel of parties. My glass was nearly empty. I turned to go back in, when out of the corner of my eye, I spotted something on the second-floor balcony. Two figures stood facing each other, moonlight pouring over them, casting a hazy, ambiguous glow. The man had his back to me, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a white dress shirt, but just from his posture, I knew instantly. It was my husband, James Nolan, and standing across from him was Olivia Harper, with her long, glossy hair and striking red dress, glowing like fire under the moonlight. I froze, heart clenching. There it was, the kind of woman James would actually fall for. Olivia, graceful and captivating, was the type any billionaire would have eyes for. But I didn't want to ruin his moment. A secretary like me, even if now carrying the title of wife, had no business interrupting a man like James when he was with someone he actually liked. Maybe sensing someone watching, James turned. His sharp gaze sliced through the night and landed directly on me. Instinctively, I stepped back, retreating into the shadows of the balcony, heart pounding like I'd been caught doing something wrong. I spun around, about to walk away quickly, only to slam straight into a solid chest. The intense scent of cologne hit me, making me jerk back and look up. The lights from the ballroom behind him cast him in silhouette, so I couldn't see his face clearly, but his grip on my shoulders was firm, his fingers pressing slightly. He tilted his head, glanced down at me, let out a low, disapproving grunt that sounded like a warning. Our eyes met and held, neither of us backing down. In the dim light, I recognized him, Daniel Reed, with eyes deep and cold, like a wolf sizing up prey. 2 tense seconds passed before he finally spoke, slow and low. "Miss Emma, you're standing on my foot." I blinked, heat rushing to my face, quickly stepping back to create space. "Sorry," I muttered, trying to keep my composure, even though I felt flustered. Daniel glanced at me, lips twitching into a half-smirk, eyes glinting with something mischievous. He tilted his chin slightly, voice polite but loaded with intent. "Miss Emma, are you open to a new job opportunity these days?" I raised an eyebrow, head tilting, voice cautious. "Mr. Reed, what do you mean by that?" He leaned in slightly, eyes locked on mine, with interest for 2 seconds, then said, still sounding polite, "I'm quite impressed by your work. I'd like to invite you to come work for me at Reed Corporation. Whatever James is paying you, I'll triple it." I was stunned, mind spinning like I'd just hit the lottery. My skills, recognized by another billionaire? Triple the salary? With my current income, 7 figures wouldn't be far off. I could already picture myself in a sparkling glass office at Reed Corp, my bank account loaded, never having to worry about going broke if James's company ever tanked. In that moment, I imagined a secure future, free from the poverty and instability of my childhood. But just as I was lost in my seven-figure daydream, a cold voice cut through the air like a blade. "Daniel, whose business are you trying to meddle in?" James stepped in. He stood face to face with Daniel, voice low and sharp. "Daniel Reed, do you even know who you're talking to?" "Emma is my wife. No way in hell she's going to work for you." I covered my mouth, almost gasping. Was the male lead battle about to begin? But no, this wasn't about Olivia. This time, it was about me. Daniel gave a cold laugh, lips curling in defiance, eyes flicking past James to settle on me. "James, this isn't over." He pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to me casually. "Miss Emma, feel free to contact me anytime. And if you want to negotiate for a higher salary, I'm open. I look forward to working with you." James's eyes flared with fury, like he wanted to tear Daniel apart. His hands clenched into fists, knuckles white, gaze sharp as a blade. Daniel simply shrugged and walked away, leaving a silence so tense it hummed. James immediately backed me into a corner, his breath hot against my face, intense and pressing. "Emma," he said, voice so low it was almost threatening, his expression stormy. I froze, too afraid to move, my heart pounding. "You want to go with him?" he asked, eyes drilling into me like he could see straight through all the calculations in my head. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. "James, I didn't say yes," but inside, I knew I had wavered. Daniel's offer was too tempting. Triple the salary, 7 figures, the kind of secure future I had always dreamed of. James's hand slid up, his long fingers tilting my chin, not roughly, but with clear intent. He leaned in, breath warm against my cheek, voice low and intimate, enough to make my ears burn. "Don't lie. You're clearly tempted. 7 figures got you thinking." I instinctively pulled my neck back, face flushed, trying to step away, but there was nowhere to go. James, clearly teasing now, leaned in closer, lips curling into a dangerous smirk. Greedy little money lover. My brain short-circuited, and I stammered, "Let me explain." Yes, I loved money. I placed great value on it. Growing up poor, without emotional security or a stable home, money was the only safety net I had. No fallback, no family, just a bank balance. The longer the number, the safer I felt. That's why I worked myself to the bone. James looked at me, his gaze softening just a little, though still focused. He reached out, calloused fingers gently tucking a stray lock of hair behind my ear, then pausing at my earlobe, rubbing it twice, the gesture slow and soothing, like he was calming a child. His voice dropped, low and hoarse, like a whisper in the night. "It's okay. I have enough money to keep you." Every day, James stuck close to me, always right by my side, from the office to his luxurious mansion. He said he was afraid Daniel might sneak in and try to lure me away with a job offer. Honestly, Daniel's salary offer was so tempting, I even dreamed of long rows of numbers in my bank account. But I wasn't naive. Working under someone as unprincipled as Daniel, a man who could coldly spill a cocktail on Olivia's dress just because she didn't listen to him? No thank you. What if I upset him one day and he casually dropped a "wanna taste a lawsuit"? I'd be sued into bankruptcy. At least with James, even if he dumped a pile of work on me, he never made me feel unsafe. Lately, I've started a new operation, one that's both strategic and practical. In the middle of the night, I shook James awake, my voice serious like I was negotiating a contract. "James, if you ever cheat on me, how much emotional compensation will you pay?" James, groggy with sleep, eyelids heavy, yawned lazily, his voice hoarse and too tired to argue. "I'm not gonna cheat, don't worry." He rolled over, pulled the blanket over his head, his messy black hair rubbing into the pillow, looking just like a little boy being dragged out of bed by his mom. I didn't let him off. "That's easy to say. Don't think I forgot how you snuck off to chat with Olivia on the balcony. Come on, name a number." "How much?" James pushed to his limit. sat up straight, his hair even messier, those brown eyes flashing with mild defeat. He sighed, expression blank. "I'll give you all my money." I let out a nonchalant, lips curling into a sarcastic smile, like his promise was just another one of his bedtime stories. But James didn't care. He lay back down, shut his eyes, rubbing his head against the pillow like a puppy searching for a comfy spot. I wasn't done. I grabbed his arm, voice firmer than ever. "Let's sign a contract." He opened his eyes and stared at me, then suddenly burst out laughing, voice sleepy but teasing. "You're serious about this?" His smile shimmered in the moonlight, wild and childlike, and for a second, I almost forgot I was in the middle of a negotiation. I nodded. James sighed again, shook his head in defeat, but still reached for his phone on the nightstand. He dialed a number, his low voice cutting through the quiet night. "William, come to my house right now." I need a document drafted. Just 30 minutes later, Lawyer William showed up at the mansion, his silver hair disheveled, gold-rimmed glasses crooked on his nose, eyes red from being dragged out of bed at 3 a.m. He stood in the living room, holding the coffee I'd brewed, his wrinkled dress shirt looking like it had just been yanked out from the bottom of a laundry basket. William pushed up his glasses, forced a polite smile, and said in a slightly trembling, sleep-deprived voice, "Emma, planning ahead is smart, but asking me to draft a contract at 3 a.m. is a bit much, don't you think?" I took a sip of coffee, the bitterness spreading across my tongue, then replied, "James said he'd triple your usual fee." The moment the words left my mouth, William's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth stretched so wide they nearly reached his ears. He opened his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard like a whirlwind. "Attorney William, at your 24/7 service." Watching that scene, I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. As expected, the most powerful superpower in this world is money. While drafting the agreement, James radiated a gloom like a thundercloud hanging over the entire living room. He sprawled on the sofa, his tall frame loose as if boneless, long legs spread out awkwardly with no place to put them, his lazy eyes following Lawyer Williams' fingers, clacking rapidly across the laptop keyboard. The crystal chandelier above cast shimmering light down on his face, highlighting a dull expression and tightly pressed lips, as if signing this agreement was nothing more than a joke not worth his concern. I sat across from him, holding a cup of coffee, watching him, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not taking all your money. Just compensation for the emotional damage is enough." James shot me a glance, his cold eyes stopping for exactly 2 seconds before he let out a short snort, his tone laced with sarcasm and fatigue. "Thanks a lot." His half-smile was like a thin blade, sharp and cutting, making my chest tighten slightly. I rolled my eyes, didn't bother responding, turned to William and said casually, "Add the suburban villa I told you to leave out earlier." William pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, the corner of his mouth twitching as if stifling a laugh, but his fingers kept typing swiftly like a machine. Once finished, he slid the papers over to James, showing the professionalism of a man promised triple his usual fee. James didn't even flip through, just picked up the pen and signed, his strokes strong and decisive, as if eager to end this midnight drama quickly. He stood, about to head back to the bedroom, when William called after him, leaned close, whispering something so quietly I couldn't catch. James shot me a glance, a flicker of guilt in his eyes before quickly looking away, snapping irritably, I know." He turned, his heavy footsteps echoing, leaving me sitting there, eyes lowered in quiet sorrow. I wondered, maybe everyone already knew he liked Olivia. Sooner or later, he'd divorce me. The emptiness inside felt like a pebble dropping into my chest. Not painful, just unbearably heavy. The next morning, I woke still foggy from the conversation the night before, James's look haunting my mind. Turning over, I saw him already dressed, a gray suit hugging his frame, a white shirt faintly revealing firm abs beneath the thin fabric. He stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie, neat and vibrant, like a statue stepped out of a magazine. Seeing me awake, James turned, a faint smile on his lips, his deep voice gentle. First time seeing you up early. Felt strange, so I didn't wake you. Sleep a little more. I'll head to the office later. His features glowed under the morning light. Long, dark eyes shadowed by messy hair. Lips pressed lightly together, as if hiding something. I looked at him. My heart skipped a beat. I liked him. The thought struck me like lightning across my mind. I realized how dangerous that was. Liking James Nolan, the man who would inevitably leave me. But I couldn't stop. My emotions surged. I reached out, looping my arms around his neck, fingertips brushing his warm throat, my other hand pressed against his solid chest, feeling each strong heartbeat beneath the shirt. His body stiffened. His breath caught for a second, then quickened, chest rising beneath my hand. Emma! He grabbed the hand I was toying with, his husky voice carrying a hint of warning. Don't play. His eyes glimmered, serious yet clearly restraining something inside. But the more he forbade, the more I wanted to push further. I leaned closer, locking eyes with him, a teasing smile on my lips. Suddenly, as if remembering something, James shoved me away, cleared his throat, refusing to look at me again. He grabbed his coat, heading quickly for the door, his voice cold. I'm on a business trip for a week starting tomorrow. I frowned, watching his back, something off in his walk, as if he was hiding something. His hand rested on the doorknob. He didn't look back, his tone flat. Don't overthink. Then he walked out, leaving me sitting on the bed, lips pressed tight, a wave of disappointment washing over me. I was his secretary. How could I not know about this supposed business trip? In my mind, a bitter voice echoed, he's definitely meeting Olivia. James was just another awful man, no different from Ryan. On the first day James went on his business trip, I wandered alone through the vast mansion. To fill the emptiness, I returned to the bar where it all started. The bar where we both got betrayed by that security footage. I sat at the counter, ordered a few cocktails, the spicy bitterness spreading across my tongue, warm as it slid down my throat. But no matter how tipsy I got, I still couldn't remember how we ended up at that hotel that night. James barely drank. He was much more sober than I was. Suddenly, something clicked in my head, an embarrassing memory rising like a tide, sweeping away my clarity. It was me. I had initiated it. I was the one who kissed him first, lips pressing against his, breath mingling in the darkness of the hotel room. My head was filled with James. Everything was my fault. James was forced. He resisted at first, his hoarse voice urging, Emma, get a grip. But I had pulled him into that spiral. I buried my face in my hands, shame weighing on my chest like a boulder. I was about to cry harder when a male voice hesitantly interrupted. Emma? I looked up and saw Daniel Reed standing there, one eyebrow slightly raised, eyes shaded with suspicion. What are you doing here? But my attention wasn't on him. It was on Olivia, clinging to his arm. Why was Olivia with Daniel? Had James been dumped? Poor James, seduced by his secretary, then abandoned by the woman he liked. I need to call lawyer William. I don't want the countryside villa anymore. Just give everything to James. I glared at Daniel, my tone sharp and irritated. Why can't I be here? Daniel glanced at me, his gaze deep like a bottomless pit, his voice tinged with doubt. You're at a bar? Not at the hospital taking care of your husband? My brows furrowed, heart skipping, anxiety rising like a crashing wave. Hospital? What hospital? Don't tell me Daniel caught Olivia cheating with James and beat him up so bad he ended up in the ER? Daniel glanced at me twice, let out a low scoff laced with sarcasm. He just had an appendectomy. He's recovering in the hospital, I asked, voice trembling. How do you know? He nodded toward Olivia and answered calmly. My girlfriend did the surgery. Olivia smiled at me, her voice soft like a spring breeze. Don't worry, the surgery went really well. I froze, completely stunned, my mind spinning. You really had the woman you liked perform surgery on you? Nicely done, James. How are you ever going to pursue her now? So Olivia was a famous surgeon. That night on the balcony, they weren't flirting. They were discussing the operation plan. Lawyer William had a similar health issue before, and the midnight contract was a ruse to get James to schedule surgery. Olivia had been introduced by William himself. I rushed to the hospital. When I opened the door, James was lying in bed, propped up against pillows, eyes closed like he was asleep. He thought I was a nurse and didn't look up, mumbling wearily, "Could you pour me a glass of water, please?" I poured the water, hands trembling, and passed it to him. The cool sip touched his lips, and when he opened his eyes and saw me, he jolted upright. His messy hair fell over his eyes, his face pale from the pain, as he clutched his stomach and groaned. I rushed to help him lie back down, gripping his shoulders, my voice laced with anger and worry. "Why didn't you tell me you were having surgery?" James didn't answer right away. His eyes dodged mine, his voice hesitant. "It was just from poor eating habits. Nothing serious, so—" He lay there in the oversized hospital gown, the white bandage across his stomach exposed. I took a towel and gently wiped the sweat from his forehead, my hand trembling as it touched his warm skin. Suddenly, I was overwhelmed by emotion. We both stayed quiet for a long time, the silence in the hospital room heavy. I'd had a fair amount to drink at the bar, enough for the alcohol to dull my mind. I nudged his shoulder softly, my voice low and sad, like whispering a secret. "If this world were a movie, you'd be a supporting character. My appearance would be a glitch in the story. So you were forced to marry me, but now the woman you really love has shown up. Of course you'll be drawn to her and divorce me. That's why, when the time comes, just give me a heads up before you leave." The more I spoke, the more scattered my words became, tumbling out like a stream. I didn't even know what I was saying anymore. All I knew was that hot tears were rolling down my cheeks. James looked at me, eyes calm but deep, voice gentle. "So that's why you pushed for the agreement? You're afraid I'll leave you for someone I like and steal all your money?" I nodded, then shook my head, voice shaky. "I'm not stupid." He let out a soft laugh, that familiar husky tone echoing in the quiet hospital room. He squeezed my hand. Yeah. You're just money-obsessed." Then he reached out and patted my head, tender as if soothing a child, teasing as he said, "That night, I wasn't drunk. I did it willingly. I like you," my brain short-circuited. It felt like lightning struck. James actually said he liked me. My heart pounded, breath quickened. He opened the bedside drawer and pulled out a small ring box, the silver glinting under the hospital light. He slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly on my ring finger, heavy with its worth, the same ring that had gone up for auction 2 weeks ago and was now resting quietly in my hand. I recognized it immediately, staring in a daze as it sparkled. James scratched his head, his handsome face blushing slightly as he stammered, "I always wanted to buy this and propose to you, but who knew?" He trailed off, eyes avoiding mine, then added, "Who knew? I'd end up in the hospital instead." I looked at the ring, lips curling into a dazed smile. "It's okay. As long as there's a ring, that's enough." "Emma Watson," he called, his voice warm and low, eyes locking onto mine. "Yes," I answered, my gaze hazy, the alcohol still lingering. "I'm not going to divorce you," he said, his tone firm like a vow. Then he leaned in, gently kissed my lips, his warm breath blending with mine, and lifted my hand to kiss the ring on my finger. Slow, soft, reverent. "I'll stay by your side forever." "Even in death," he whispered, eyes glowing like stars, voice full of emotion. "I only know that I love you." I stood there, heart frozen in that moment. All the drama, all the doubt, melted away. James Nolan, the man I once thought was just a game, was now looking at me with the most sincere eyes I'd ever seen. I held him, tears streaming down my cheeks. But this time, they were tears of happiness. Maybe, just maybe, our rom-com really was going to have a happy ending. If it were you, would you believe in second chances? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next heart-touching stories.